truth be told, I believe the best version of the Four Horsemen was when we had Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Barry Windham. Barry Windham just was a step up from Ole Anderson, in my opinion, when it came to in the ring. What he was able to do in the ring, I think, was better than what Ole could do. I think Ole had a great mind. I think Barry also did, but Barry was just better at the wrestling aspect of it. This version existed primarily in 1988 and is often considered the peak wrestling version of the group. Barry brought an athleticism and a superstar energy while still fitting into the Horseman image perfectly. He was tall, explosive, technically excellent, and looked like a future world champion. He was the first person in the Four Horsemen that looked like he could be a world heavyweight champion outside of Ric Flair. None of the other three guys felt like they could carry the world championship. They didn't feel like they could be the face of the brand, the face of the company, the face of the Horseman. Barry Windham looked and felt like the guy that you could put the world championship on him, and it felt right. It felt fine. With Windham, the Horsemen, they all of a sudden, overnight, they've got Flair's charisma, Arn's toughness, Tully's arrogance, and Barry's athletic brilliance. It was a perfect balance with these four. Many fans believe this was the strongest in-ring version of the Horsemen ever assembled. To be honest, they looked cool as hell. You know what I mean? Like the suits, the glasses, the promos, the confidence, that lineup felt, they felt untouchable. Like that version of the Four Horsemen felt like no one could ever beat them. Now you're going to deal with Barry Windham. Like replacing Ole with Barry Windham was such an upgrade. No one wants to touch them. Barry was just so massive, he could just beat the hell out of everybody. I think it's the best Four Horsemen of all time. I did tell you I have a 1A, 1B. The 1B was that 1995 to 1997 version. Okay. This was the version that a lot of you remember. This was the version that we got to see during those Monday Night Wars. This was the version that we got to see in WCW, where we're watching this every Monday night, right? And that was Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Brian Pillman, and Chris Benoit. This group was phenomenal inside the ring. Brian, he especially brought chaos and unpredictability that felt ahead of its time. And Brian Pillman was good. But the group didn't last long enough to surpass, I think, the classic eras that we saw with the Horsemen. You threw Chris Benoit in there too. I mean, top 5 technical wrestlers of all time. That could easily be the greatest version of the Four Horsemen. But I think with Barry Windham and Tully Blanchard, Arn and Rick, that just seemed like an unstoppable force. Now, I'm going to tell you who I think is the worst Four Horsemen lineup ever. Please comment below who you think is the 4 worst of all time. This shouldn't even be, everybody should literally have the same 4. The worst and the strangest, in my opinion, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, our 2 staples, Ole, and then Paul Roma. Why? The Paul Roma Horseman era in 93, it's infamous amongst us fans. Paul Roma simply didn't fit the Horseman image. It's Paul Roma. Ole is past his prime at this point, and we have Paul Roma. And Roma's not untalented. He was athletic and had success in other areas, but being a Horseman, it required some specific things, an aura about yourself, elite promo ability. He didn't have that. Swagger, he didn't have that. Legitimacy, didn't have that. A lot of you, first time you ever heard Paul Roma's name. And then being a credible top-tier star, Paul Roma was none of those things. Why was he a Horseman? No idea. Zero. Why? No one knows. I don't think anybody, I think he just showed up one day and he accidentally walked out with them. I don't know. He was a mid-card wrestler that was suddenly thrown into the greatest faction ever created. I don't know. Fans rejected it right off the rip. Arn Anderson later on actually criticized in public the decision, and The chemistry just wasn't there. The presentation felt off, and the magic disappeared. Many fans also disliked later versions with like Mongo McMichael, Steve Mongo McMichael, and I hated Jeff Jarrett. Like, hated it. I like Jeff Jarrett, and I like what Jeff Jarrett has done for the world of wrestling. I hated him as a horseman just as much as I hated Steve McMichael as a horseman. I think Steve McMichael's awesome. I just didn't like him as a horseman. He's a football player, a Hall of Fame football player, Super Bowl champion football player, not a Four Horsemen, okay? He's not a horseman. But the Roma version, man, it just felt weird from day one. Like, it's believable with McMichael, right? It's believable with Steve McMichael because he was a Super Bowl champion. He was a Hall of Famer. He Pro Bowler, NFL superstar. So he had that swagger, that athleticism. He had all those things. Jeff Jarrett, once again, this guy is royalty in the wrestling business. He fits the Four Horsemen much better. I didn't like it. I didn't like that version, but he felt like somebody that could be a horseman. Paul Roma? Don't know about that. The legacy of the Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen officially faded away by the late 1990s. Their influence never disappeared, guys. You can see the Horsemen's DNA everywhere. Without the Horsemen, there's probably no evolution, no modern elite faction formula to go off of. We may not have had the NWO as we know it, with that swagger, with that the faction always stays together. If one gets in a fight, we all fight. In the structure of the bloodline, you can look at it. It comes right from that DNA of the Four Horsemen. Wrestlers today still use the iconic four fingers hand gesture. This right here, guys, is everyone knows what you're talking about when you throw this up. Took them till 2012 to put them in the Hall of Fame, for the love of God. That should have been first class of the Hall of Fame, would have been the Four Horsemen. They didn't create just a wrestling faction. They changed wrestling storytelling forever. They proved villains could be cool. They proved factions could draw money. See, back then it was either you were a singles headline main event guy or you were a tag team like the Road Warriors or Rock and Roll Express or Midnight Express that could headline. You didn't have four guys and a manager that if they showed up and they had different matches throughout the night, just the fact that they were on the card, all four wrestlers were going to be on the card. You knew that you were going to get all four of them to come out at some point. You knew there was going to be a fight. You knew that somebody's going to get beat up. The rest of them were going to run out of the locker room. You knew what their formula was and you wanted to be there for it. You wanted to see it in person. That was the first time we saw a faction. It was the first time we saw a faction that could draw money. They proved that charisma, presentation, and realism could make wrestling feel larger than life. To many fans, the Four Horsemen, including myself, are the gold standard. And to be honest with you, I think they always will be. I think long after Rick has gone to the ring in the sky, Arn's done the same thing, Tully's done the same thing. Once these guys have gone on, we're still going to hear the woos. We're still going to see the fingers. We're still going to hear references. There are going to be callbacks to the Four Horsemen over and over and over. Guys, the Four Horsemen may have the most impact as a faction in professional wrestling history. It is a faction that has outlasted every other group ever created. Without the Four Horsemen, we may not have the wrestling that we know today, but I do know this. Without the Four Horsemen, the 80s and the 90s professional wrestling would not have been cool as it was.